Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to the Aural Theory YouTube series. My name is Dr. Julia Alford. In today's video, we are going to continue our exploration of harmonic dictation by adding a little bit to the predominant section and introducing the cadential 6/4 chords. Okay, so to start off, we're keeping with that tonic expansion section at the beginning. Again, that can be a 1 or some variation of the 5 chord. So the 3 notes in the 1 chord, do, mi, sol. The 4 notes in the 5/7, sol, ti, re, or fa. So some combination of that. If you are just joining us and you're brand new to harmonic dictation, you're going to want to back up and go below to see a link for the other videos that we've been working on up until this point, so you can get caught up and then keep going. You won't regret it. Well worth your time, I'm sure. But let's keep on going with this. So we have the tonic expansion section, and then the predominant chords, we're going to add one. So far we've had the 2, the 2, 6, the 2 only really in root position in major, and then the 4 chord, and then we're going to add in the 6 chord. So the 6 could be in first inversion. So the 6th chord is la, do, mi. So it could have do in the bass, but it'd be really unusual. So la in the bass will be a root position 6 chord. A 4 chord will be fa, la, do. If you have 4 chord in the first inversion, it would have la in the bass. And then the 2 chord would be, root position would have re in the bass, and then first inversion would have fa in the bass. And now, because we're going to have 2 chords, you could have like a 6 going to a 4. You could have a 4 going to a 2, 6. You could have a 6 going to a 2, 6. But the most commons are like the 6 going to the 4 or the 4 going to the 2, 6. It's kind of the scope of it. You're probably going to have the stronger predominance are your 4 and the 2, 6, and those are usually what's going to precede the dominant section. Now, remember, we've got our train analogy. You're going on the train, you're looking out the window, you're kind of enjoying the scene, and you're finding out what this is all about, and then the announcer comes on and tells you that your stop is coming up. And that's the predominant chord. So the predominant chord tells you something is shifting, we're heading towards the cadence. And it's going to feel a little bit different. The more you do this, the more you practice, the more you'll be able to pick out, aha, something else is happening here. And then the dominant section, so far we've only had the 5 or the 5/7. We're going to expand upon that by adding in what's called the cadential 6/4 chord. So the cadential 6/4 chord, most people will talk about it, they'll label it differently, but we'll talk about it in terms of the function of the 5 chord. So the 5 chord gets us to the 1. So in that case, you'll have the 5, and then it's preceded by what is spelled like a 1 chord in second inversion. So the notes you have are sol in the bass, and then do, mi, and then usually sol is doubled, so which is a little bit unusual. But for the 6/4 chord, you'll have a doubled sol, a mi, a do, and a mi, or the 5 5th scale degree and the 1 and 3. And that will usually resolve down to a sol staying in the bass, and it will either be sol, sol, or sol, sol. And that's a big clue too when you hear that leaping sol, or you see the leaping sol. Aha, it's a cadential 6/4 chord. That will go to a 5 or a 5/7 chord, and then we'll go to the 1. Okay.
Hey everyone, sorry, I am jumping in here because I realized while I was editing this video that I left out a very important point, which is how do we label the cadential 6/4? There's no agreement on this, and a lot of people will vehemently fight over it, but there's a few options. You can write cad 6/4. You can write 1/6/4 followed by 5 with a bracket under it with the 5 to show that it's part of the dominant section. Some people will just write 1/6/4 to the 5 or 5/7. Okay, so for my students, if you're taking a class with me, this is what we're going to do, or if you have an instructor that does something similar, we're going to write 5/6/4 --5/3. That's if the second chord is a triad. Okay, so what that is showing is that the whole thing is a 5 chord, and that the first quote-unquote chord isn't really chord, rather these 2 notes, the 6 and the 4, over the 5th scale degree that resolve down to the 5/3. And then if there's a 7th in that second chord, we're going to put 8, 6, 4 next to the 5, and then line, 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 7, 5, 3. So we're showing the, in figured bass, the actual notes that would be above the bass pitch, resolving down to the 7, 5, and the 3, all considered part of the 5 area or the dominant area. I know it's a little bit confusing. Please do leave me a question or comment below. When I have time, I'll try to make a whole video just talking about the cadential 6/4 chord, but it's probably ways off. So anyways, back at it.
Listening hats on. We're going to do 2 listenings for mapping the progression, and we're just going to go through here, and you've got 9 chords. We're in D major. We're starting in Do in the bass, Do in the soprano, and you are going to listen and think, where does that predominant chord happen? You're going to pretend like I didn't just give you a bunch of clues, or you could use them if you really wanted to, but try to do it without. So label which chords are predominant when they start. Once you start the predominant, you're in the predominant. And then probably going to have a cadential 6/4 chord, so that will take up 2 chords. See if you can label where those are. And then your tonic, which is going to be your last chord. So you could go ahead and give yourself a little help by labeling the last chord and probably the first chord. The first chord is a tonic chord, so 1. Okay, so just 2 listenings for mapping. So the first time you're going to listen for how long that tonic expansion section is, and then the second time you're going to try to see if you can tell the difference between the tonic chords and the dominant in the tonic expansion. Okay, here we go. Expansion. Now listen for, if you need to grab another listening to see how long tonic expansion is, cool. But if you've got it, listen for, is it a tonic chord? Or is it some kind of dominant chord like a 5? Right? No, there's a big clue. Okay, so let's try this. Back up if you need more listings, and here's the map. So we've got tonic expansion on the first 4 chords, 2 chords for predominant, 2 chords for cadential 6/4, and then 1 tonic chord at the end. Our tonic expansion, and deeper look at that, we've got tonic, 2 dominant chords, tonic, and then we go into the predominant. So bearing that in mind, let's listen for the bass. If you need to, think about the tonic chord, what notes you might have, the dominant chord, what notes you might have, predominance, what you might have. Then we've got, at the end, you can actually just pencil in below the cadential 6/4, sol, sol, and then do at the end. So that's a big clue. You're really just listening for, is it leaping or is it staying put in the same voice? Okay. If you need to, this first listening, just draw some arrows. Is it going down? Is it going up? Maybe is it leaping or is it going by step? Okay. And here we go. Just going to do 2 listenings for the bass real quick. If you need to, you can always back it up. It's fine. Okay, so 1 more listening. You're kind of traveling downwards and then back up for that tonic expansion section. See if you want to pause, think through the notes. But see, you can also just get it. So here we go. if you need more listenings, back up, grab them, and we're going to look at the bass right now. Okay, so we've got Do, we're leaping down to Sol, skipping, but here's the trick. So here, do, we land on Do there on the 4th chord, and it's going up by half steps, so that's your clue that it's T, Do, and then we're going down, but we're not going too far, so it's not like we go all the way down to Fa, we go do, so predominant has to be Do for the 4th chord, La, Fa, or 1, 6, 4 if you're thinking of scale degrees, and then Sol. Sol stays in the same place, Do. Okay? We're going fast if you need to stop, right? I'm gonna go fast, you're gonna go slow. So I'm gonna go fast. If you need to pause, think through things, back them up, listen to me say it again, please do. Take your time to get through this video. Let's listen for the soprano. Again, this first listening, draw some arrows if you need to, and then grab the notes on the next one. Grab more listens if you want. We start on Do. Okay, where do we end? Not Do. There's Do. Do. That's our last pitch. Hopefully that helps. Okay? So we're just kind of going, we go down, up, but it's a lot of movement by step. So hopefully this is not too difficult. There's some common tones going between the chords that we maintain. So give this another listen and see if you can get these pitches. Ready? Okie dokie. So we went down. Let's take a look at the soprano. And here you go. So we go Do, T, Sol, and then Sol stays put, right? So it's a common tone between, it's the one note that is in common between the 1 and the 5 chord. And then we go up to La. So we've got La in the soprano, La in the bass. That's a big clue on that chord. La, Fa in the bass. And then look at this, we've got Sol, Fa, Mi. So if you have Fa over a 5, remember the 5 chord is Sol, Ti, Re, Fa, and Fa is the 7th. So that way we know that that second to last chord is a 5-7 chord and not just the triad. Okay, let's think through our options. We've got a 1 chord, we've got either a 5 or a 5-7, and then a 5-6 or a 5-6-5. So you're listening for, is it just a triad or is it like crunchy, like a dominant chord between those two? One could be one could be the other, or they could both be triads, or they could both be 7th chords. So that's what you're listening for. Then we know we have a 1 chord. And then we could have a 6 or a 4-6. So is it minor as a 6 or major as a 4-6? And then the next chord, it could be a 4, which would be major, or it could be a 2-6, would be minor. So you're listening for, again, quality there. And then we've got our cadential 6/4 center 1. So just a couple chords to figure out. Let's give it 2 listenings and see if you can get it. Okay, let's go. I'll go a little bit slower this next time. See if you can figure it out. Triad or 7th chord. Triad or 7th chord. To the 1. Major or minor. Major or minor. Cadential 6/4. Okay. up and grab more listings if you need it. Let's take a look at the answer. And now. Good. So we've got the 1, and then just a 5 chord. Triad, followed by that nice crunchy. You've got that tritone right in the bass. 5, 6, 5, resolving down nicely to the 1, to the minor 6, okay, to the major 4, with those common tones in the right hand just carrying through. If you look, you only have that contrary motion in the bass that changes. So 6, 4, to the cadential 6, 4. Right. So just to zoom in on that cadential 6, 4 chord a little bit more, we do very much see that as a 5 chord in terms of function, no matter how you label the first chord. Some teachers will have you label as a 1, 6, 4. And then the 5, 7 with like a bracket 5 underneath. Some might have you label it as a CAD 6, 4 followed by a 5, 7. Or the way that I'm labeling it here with the 5, 8, 6, 4 resolving to the 7, 5, 3. Whatever you have, whatever your teacher has you do is fine. The thing that I want to make sure that you know is that it is functioning as dominant, and that's why we're labeling those 2 chords clustered together like that, because we really hear it as just all over the 5 chord. Okay, that's it. Please do leave me questions below. I think there's another cadential 6, 4 chord video in here. Maybe if there is, I'll link it below. And be sure to like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. If you are, thank you so much. And I will see you in the next video, where we will look at the alternative opening, which is what I call it. I don't think anybody else calls it that, but it's basically like not tonic expansion, something else. It's fun. It gets a little pop music-ish. Okay. That's it. I'll see you then. Bye.